The Navimow X4 does something on a steep hill that no other robot mower in its class can match, but it also can't fit through a gap that's only 4 centimeters wider than its body. I've been running Segway's flagship 4-wheel drive mower for 3 weeks now, across 3 very different zones on my property. And after putting it through a 7-category scoring system, it landed at a score that surprised me. One category nearly earned a 9, and one setup mistake literally cost me a hedge. But before the scores, a quick disclosure. Navimow sent this unit for review, and there's an affiliate link in the description. But the scores are mine, and if this thing earned a 4, you'd hear about it. The Navimow X4 is Segway's new large lawn flagship, a genuine 4-wheel drive robot mower with dual suspension, built for properties up to 5,000 square meters. The X430 model I'm testing is the mid-range option, 3,000 square meters or about 1 acre, priced around $2,500. It sits right alongside the Mammotion Luba 3AWD, which I also own and run daily. Okay, so the thing you need to know up front, this machine is physically big. Nearly 29 kilos, over 60 centimeters wide and 85 long. That size drives everything good and everything tricky about it. You'll need to keep that in mind as we go through the scores. Okay, first up, cutting performance. The X4 runs a 430mm dual disc system, the widest cut in this class, with 12 blades powered by dual 180-watt motors. On my main lawn, a typical Nordic cool season grass mix, I've been running it at 20mm, the lowest setting. The cut quality is genuinely excellent. Clean and no scalping, even on uneven ground. The wider deck means it covers ground fast without sacrificing finish. On my rougher outskirt area lawn, which is honestly about 50% weeds, I run it at 40mm 3 times a week, and it handles it perfect. If you have overgrown patches, it will need multiple passes, but at a regular 3 times a week cadence, there's no issues at all. I also set up a zone at 80mm along a horse fence line, keeping tall grass from touching the electric wire and weakening the current. For that kind of rough area work, the wide deck and raw motor power are exactly what you want. Now the edges, because along straight edges, like my patio, you're looking at about 10 centimeters of uncut grass. In inside corners, that jumps to 20 or even 30 centimeters. That's the trade-off with a mower this wide and big. The blade disc sits inboard of the outer wheels, so a strip always remains. So if you've got a tight, manicured lawn where every centimeter along the edge counts, this isn't your mower. But if you've got a bigger property where 10 centimeters along a fence line doesn't bother you, the raw cutting power here is outstanding. Cutting performance lands at an 8.0 out of 10. Right, next is navigation and mapping. This is where the X4 genuinely impressed me. I set it up completely antenna-free using Segway's Network RTK. No base station, no antenna pole in the garden, just a mobile connection. The auto mapping was superb, and on my outskirt lawn, I used the manual mapping, but I didn't mark a single obstacle. Not the flower beds, not the apple trees, not the trampoline, not the fire pit, not even the kids' sand pit. The 360 vision fence picked up every one of them, routed around them cleanly, and never false stopped or crashed into them once. A fair warning though. Some early adopters have reported an NRTK boundary loss bug in older firmware, where the mower temporarily loses its mapped boundaries. Segway has acknowledged it and pushed updates. I didn't experience it during my 3 weeks, but the software is still maturing, so always check for updates before you start with a new mower. Navigation and mapping earns an 8.5 out of 10. Okay, setup and installation. This is where one of my mistakes comes in. The antenna-free setup itself is genuinely easy. Drop the charging station, open the app, connect, let it auto-map. Straightforward. But the charging station needs a clear view of the sky for RTK positioning, which means open space, not tucked against your house wall. I originally placed it close to the house, but that didn't work very well. Moved it about 2 meters out into the open, and it connected immediately. But that led to the other friction point. The power cord that comes with the charging station is very short. So unless you've already got an outdoor outlet right where the dock needs to sit, you're either running an extension cord or installing a new one. And then there's the hedge. The X4 is over 60 centimeters wide. I had a passage in between my hedges that were only about 2 centimeters of clearance on each side. Even though the mower drove through it during mapping, it kept hesitating and refusing to pass in daily use. I ended up cutting the hedge back to give it about 10 centimeters of clearance on each side. After that, flawless. So the rule of thumb, body width plus about 20 centimeters total clearance. Anything tighter and you might have a problem. That leaves setup and installation with a 7.5 out of 10. Next up, app and scheduling. The Navimow app is clean, simple, and reliable. Scheduling, zone management, cutting height per zone, it all works and is easy to set up. Compared to the Mammotion app, there are fewer granular settings. Things like cutting overlap percentage and mowing speed aren't adjustable. For most homeowners, that honestly doesn't matter. For garden tech enthusiasts who like fine-tuning every parameter, you might miss that control. Navimow positions the X4 a little differently too. Less about fine-tuning every setting, more about what they call a worry-free, all-in-one smart gardening assistant. In practice, that shows up in how it mows. Long, efficient, straight-line passes to finish faster. A different starting direction each session, so you don't end up with wear patterns over time. And an automatic slowdown when it hits tall or thick grass for a cleaner cut. Google Home and Amazon's voice assistant are both supported, though I didn't test voice commands. Summed up, it gives the app and scheduling a 7.5. Okay, now the score I've been most confident about since week 1. Build quality and durability. This thing is a tank. It's 29 kilograms of four-wheel drive, dual suspension, IP66 rated hardware. Pick it up and you feel where the money went. It handles steep slopes sideways better than anything else I've tested in this class. Around the apple trees on my property, where the ground drops away steeply on one side, the X4 just grips and keeps cutting. The Luba 3 handles the same slopes fine going straight up and down, but slides a bit when moving sideways. Navimow credits that to what they call ESC, Electronic Stability Control. It's a system that continuously monitors the mower's stability and makes individual wheel adjustments in real time, keeping it tracking straight across a slope. Whatever the mechanism behind it, the result on my own hillside was consistent. No sliding, no drifting sideways. The Xero-Turn steering helps here as well. Instead of skid steering like most AWD mowers, the front wheels physically pivot for turns. That means less turf damage, cleaner lines, and no torn up grass on wet ground. And to put hard numbers on it, Segway rates this as a genuine four-wheel drive system, good for an 84% grade, that's about 40 degrees, and rated to handle dips and potholes up to 15 centimeters deep without getting stuck. Build quality earns an 8.5 out of 10, nearly a 9, and the highest confidence score on this entire card. Now, knowing how big and tough this thing is, you might wonder how is the noise level on this tank. Segway rates the X4 at 68 decibels, which would make it one of the louder units in this class. Independent testing tells a different story. Normal operation sits around 61 decibels, dropping to about 58 in quiet mode. In practice, it sounds about the same as my Mammotion units, completely fine and it won't bother anyone. Noise gets a 7.5. And finally, value for money. This is where it gets interesting, because the X4 isn't competing against budget mowers, it's competing against the Luba 3 and the Dream A3 at nearly the same price. The X430 sits at around $2,500. For that, you're getting the highest slope rating in the consumer class, the widest cutting deck, genuine four-wheel drive with turf-safe steering, and lifetime free Network RTK with no antenna to install. But there is one recurring cost most reviewers skip. The Connect Plus service that enables remote access and 4G connectivity runs about $33 a year after the first year. Not a deal breaker, but it adds up. Against the Luba 3 at a similar price, the X4 wins on raw terrain capability and turf gentleness. The Luba 3 wins on edge precision, LiDAR-assisted navigation under tree canopy, and granular app controls. Two different tools for two different yards. Value for money lands at 7.5. So the overall score. The Segway Navimow X4 scores a 7.9 out of 10. This is a strong mower. The terrain capability is the best I've tested. Slopes, rough ground, mixed surfaces. It handles all of it with a confidence other mowers in this class don't match. And the cutting quality at low heights surprised me. It's genuinely excellent. The weak spots are the tight space limitations and the edge gaps. But those are directly tied to the wide deck that makes it so capable everywhere else. That's not a flaw, that's a design choice. So buy this if you've got a large property, 1,000 square meters or more. with slopes, rough patches or mixed terrain, and edge precision along every wall isn't your top priority. Rougher areas along fence lines, roadsides, or outskirt zones are where it truly shines. Skip this if your lawn is under 500 square meters with lots of tight corners, narrow passages, and garden beds where every centimeter of trimming counts. That's not what this machine was built for. Pick the right mower for your yard, and if your yard is big, rough, and demanding, this is the one to beat right now. If this helped you figure out whether the X4 fits your property, hit subscribe. More scored reviews are coming. Links to everything I mentioned are in the description. And until next time, keep it smart, keep it simple, and keep it green.